out into this world, tiny little thing before its time, in a god for, what, girl, yes, tiny little girl out into this before her time, godforsaken hole called, no matter, parents unknown, unheard of, he vanished. Thin air, no sooner buttoned up his breeches, she similarly 8 months later, almost to the tick, so no love spared that, no love such as normally vented on the speechless infant in the home, no, nor indeed, for that matter, of any kind, no love of any kind, at any subsequent stage, so typical affair, nothing of any note till coming up to 60 when, what, 70? Good God! Coming up to 70, wandering in a field, looking aimlessly for cowslips to make a ball, a few steps and stop, stare into space, then on, a few more, stop and stare again, so on, drifting around, when suddenly, gradually, all went out, all that early April morning light, and she found herself in the, what? Who? No, she? Found herself in the dark, and if not exactly insentient, for she could still hear the buzzing, so-called, in the ears, an array of light came and went, such as the moon might cast, drifting in and out of cloud, but so dulled, feeling so dulled, she did not know what position she was in. Imagine what position she was in, whether standing or sitting, but the brain, or what? Kneeling? Yes. Whether standing or sitting or kneeling, but the brain, what? Lying? Yes. Whether standing or sitting or kneeling or lying, but the brain still in a way, for her first thought was, long after sudden flash, brought up as she had been to believe, with the other waifs in a merciful, God, first thought was, long after sudden flash, she was being punished for her sins, a number of which then, further proof, if proof were needed, flashed through her mind, one after another, then dismissed as foolish. Long after this thought dismissed, as she suddenly gradually realized she was not suffering. Imagine not suffering. Indeed, she could not remember offhand when she had suffered less, unless, of course, she was meant to be suffering. I thought to be suffering, just as the odd time in her life, when clearly intended to be having pleasure, she was in fact having none, not in the slightest, in which case, of course, the notion of punishment for some sin or other, or for the lot, or no particular reason, for its own sake, unless she understood perfectly, for that notion of punishment, which had first occurred to her, brought up as she had been to believe with other waifs in a merciful God, first occurred to her, then dismissed as foolish, was perhaps not so foolish after all, so on, all that vain reasoning, till another thought, long after a sudden flash, very foolish, but, what, the buzzing? Yes, all the time the buzzing, so-called, in the ears, though, of course, actually not in the ears at all, in the skull, dull roar in the skull, all the time this ray or beam like moonlight, but probably not, certainly not, always the same spot, now bright, now shrouded, but always the same spot, as no moon, just all part of the same wish to torment, though actually, in point of fact, not in the least, not a twinge, so far, the other thought then, long after sudden flash, very foolish, so like in her in a way that she might do well to, on and off, writhe, she could not, as if in actual agony, but could not bring herself, some flaw in her makeup, incapable of deceit, or the machine, more likely the machine, so disconnected, never got the message, or powerless to respond, like numbed, couldn't make a sound, not any sound of any kind, no screaming, for example, should she feel so inclined to scream, then listen. Scream again. Then listen again. No, spared that. All silent as the grave, no part, what? The buzzing, yes. All silent but for the buzzing, so-called, no part of her moving, that she could feel, just the eyelids, presumably. On and off, shut out the light, reflex they call it, no feeling of any kind but the lids, even best of times, who feels them opening, shutting, all that moisture, but the brain still sufficiently, very much so, at this stage under control, so question even this, for on that April morning, so it reasoned, that April morning, she fixed with her eye a distant bell, as she hastened towards it, fixing it with her eye, lest it elude her, for not all gone out, all that light, of itself, without any on her part, so on, so it reasoned, vain questioning, and all dead still, silent, sweet silent as the grave, when suddenly, gradually, she realized, what? Who? Buzzing? Yes, all dead but for the buzzing, when suddenly she realized, words were, what? Who? No, she? Realized words were coming, imagine words were coming, a voice she did not recognize, at first so long since it sounded, then finally had to admit, she could be none other than her own. Certain vowel sounds she had never heard elsewhere, so that people would stare, the rare occasions once or twice a year, always winter for some strange reason, stare at her, uncomprehending. Now, this steady stream, she who had never, on the contrary, practically speechless all her days, how she survived, even speechless, Out shopping, busy shopping center, supermarket, just hand in the list with the bag, old black shopping bag, then stand where they're waiting, any length of time, middle of the throng, motionless, staring into space, mouth half open as usual, till it was back in her hand, the bag back in her hand, then pay and go, not as much as goodbye, how she survived, now this stream, not catching the half of it, not the quarter, no idea what she was saying, imagine, no idea what she was saying, till she began trying to delude her. It was not her at all, not her voice at all, and no doubt would have, vital she should, was on the point, after long efforts, when suddenly gradually she felt her lips moving. Imagine her lips moving, as of course till then she had not, and not alone the lips, the cheeks, the jaws, the whole face, all those what? The tongue, yes, the tongue in the mouth, all those contorts without which no speech possible, and yet in the ordinary way, not felt at all, no intent one is on what one is saying, the whole being hanging on its words, so that not only not only had she to give up, admit hers alone, her voice alone, but the other awful thought, oh, long after sudden flash, even more awful, if possible, the feeling was coming back. Imagine feeling coming back, starting at the top, then working down the whole machine, but no, spared that, the mouth alone, so far, then thinking, oh, long after sudden flash, it can't go on, all this, all that, steady stream, straining to hear, make something of it, and her own thoughts make something of them all. What? The buzzing? Yes, all the time, the buzzing so-called, all that together, imagine the whole body like gone, just the mouth, lips, cheeks, jaws, never what? Tongue, yes, lips, cheeks, jaws, tongue, never still a second, mouth on fire, stream of words in her ear, practically in her ear, not catching the half, not the quarter, no idea what she's saying, imagine, no idea what she's saying, and can't stop, no stopping it. She who but a moment before, could not make a sound, no sound of any kind, now can't stop, imagine, can't stop the stream and the whole brain begging, something begging in the brain, begging the mouth to stop, pause a moment, if only for a moment, and no response, as if it hadn't heard, or couldn't pause a second, like maddening, all that together, straining to hear, piece it together in the brain, raving away on its own, trying to make sense of it, or make it stop, or in the past, dragging up the past, flashes from all over, walks, mostly walking all her days, day after day, a few the steps, then stop, stare into space, then on, a few more, stop and stare again, so on, drifting around day after day, or that time she cried, the one time she could remember since she was a baby, must have cried as a baby, perhaps not essential to life, just the birth cry to get her going, breathing, then no more till this, old hag already, sitting staring at her hand, where was it? Croker Acres? One evening on the way home, a little mound in Croker's Acres dust, sitting, staring at her hand there in the lap, palm upward, suddenly saw it wet, the palm, tears presumably, hers presumably, no one else for miles. No sound, just the tears, sat and watched them dry all over in a second, or grabbing at straw, the brain flickering away on its own, quick grabbing on, nothing there, to the next, bad as the voice, worse, as little sense, all that together, can't, what, the buzzing, yes, all the time the buzzing, dull roar like falls, and the beam flickering on and off, starting to move around like moonbeam, but not all apart the same, keep an eye on that too, corner of the eye, all that put together, can't go on, God is love, she'll be purged, back in the field, morning sun, April, sink your face down in the grass, nothing but the larks, so on, grabbing at the straw, straining to hear the odd word, make some sense of it, whole body like gone, just the mouth, like maddening and can't stop, no stopping it, something she had to, what, who, no, she... Something she had to, what? The buzzing, yes, all the time the buzzing, dull roar in the skull, and the beam, ferreting around, painless, so far, then thinking, oh, long after, sudden flash, perhaps something she had to, tell, could that be it? Something she had to, tell, tiny little thing, before its time, God-forsaken hole, no love, spared that, speechless all her days, practically speechless, how she survived, that time in court, what had she to say for herself, guilty or not guilty, stand up, woman, speak up, woman, stood there, staring into space, mouth half open as usual, waiting to be led away, glad of the hand on her arm, now this, something she had to tell. Could that be it? Something that would tell how it was, how she, what, had been, yes, something that would tell how it had been, how she had lived on and on, guilty or not, on and on, to be 60, something she, what, 70? Good God! On and on to be 70, something she didn't know herself, wouldn't know if she heard, then forgiven, God is love, tender mercies, knew every morning, back in the field, April morning, face in the grass, nothing but the larks, pick it up there, get on with it from there, another few, what, not that, nothing to do with that, nothing she could tell, all right, nothing she could tell, trying something else, thinking of something else, oh, long after, sudden flash, not that either, all right, something else, so on, hit it on the end, think everything, keep on long enough, then forgiven, back in the, what, not that either, nothing to do with that either, nothing she could think, all right, nothing she could tell, nothing she could think, nothing she, what, who, no, she... tiny little thing, out before its time, God-forsaken hole, no love, spared that, speechless all her days, practically speechless even to herself, never out loud, but not completely, sometimes sudden urge, once or twice a year, always winter for some reason, the long evenings, hours of darkness, sudden urge to tell, then rush out to stop the first she saw, nearest lavatory, start pouring it out, steady stream, mad stuff, half the vowels wrong, no one could follow, till she saw the stare she was getting, then die of shame, crawl back in, once or twice a year, always winter for some strange reason, long hours of darkness, now this, quicker and quicker, the words, the brain flickering away like mad, quick grabbing on, nothing there, on somewhere else, try something else, all the same time, something begging, something in her begging, and all to stop, unanswered, prayers unanswered, or unheard, too faint, so on, keep on, trying, not knowing, what she was trying, what to try, whole body like gone, just the mouth like maddening, so keep, what, the buzzing, yes, all the time the buzzing, dull roar like falls in the skull and the beam poking around, painless so far, so far, all that keeping on, not knowing what she was, what, who, no, she, what she was trying, what trying to do, no matter, keep on, hit on the end, every morning, back in the field, April morning, Grace, face in the grass, nothing but the lark.